Hey, what's going on everybody? It's Travesty here, and welcome back to the channel for the first video on Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, which is a game that I have been super excited for, and I've just been waiting for it to come out. And today, we are going to go through all of the wonderful classes that are available to us, taking a look at what they do, how they play, taking a look at their skill trees to see what kind of possible builds there are for them, also that you can have all of the information before you choose your class. That way you can play the character you really want. First, we have the Graveborn. Soul Trapper, with focus on dealing damage in exchange for health. Their class feat, the Demi-Lich Companion. The Fate Maker is accompanied by a floating Demi-Lich Companion that targets enemies at range and deals dark magic damage. Their action skills are Dire Sacrifice. The Fate Maker sacrifices a portion of their health to deal dark magic ability damage and apply dark magic status effects to all nearby enemies, as well as Reaper of Bones. The Fate Maker is fully healed, gains increased leech efficiency, and deals bonus dark magic damage, but their health takes an ever-increasing amount of damage per second. When the Fate Maker would die, they instead become invulnerable for a short duration and restores a portion of their health. Alright, now for the Graveborn skill tree. Everybody ignore generic character A sitting over in the background. On your first level up, it seems you will get your Demi-Lich Companion as well as your Dire Sacrifice ability. But let's get into some choices you might make along the way and how you want to build your character. Your first option is Mortal Vessel. Maximum health is increased, and dark magic efficiency is increased. Then you have Essence Drain. Kill skill. Spell cooldown rate is increased for a duration. And then you have Faithful Thralls. The Fate Maker deals increased damage dealt for every companion they have, and your companion respawn rate is increased. Next, continuing down the line, we have Sanguine Sacrament. Whenever the Fate Maker casts a spell, they regenerate health over a brief duration. Then you have Dark Pact. Dark magic damage is increased. Then you have Harvest. Kill skill companions deal bonus dark magic damage for a duration. Dread Covenant. A portion of the damage taken by the Fate Maker is redirected to their Demi-Lich. When the Fate Maker reaches 1 health, they immediately restore health, sacrificing the Demi-Lich. Stain of the Soul. The Fate Maker's spells deal bonus dark magic damage. Dark Hydra. Kill skill. Chance to summon a Dark Hydra companion, dealing dark magic ability damage to nearby enemies for the duration. Ascension. Kill skill. Maximum health and spell damage is increased for a long duration. This effect can stack. Punishment. When the Demi-Lich casts Hellish Blast, there is a chance it will be cast again after a brief delay. Lord of Edges. The Fate Maker gains increased damage dealt and damage reduction, the lower their health. Blast Gasp. Whenever the Fate Maker deals spell damage, there is a chance they will create an elemental explosion dealing ability damage of the spell's elemental type to nearby enemies. Elemental explosion cannot critically hit. And for the capstone ability, you have Morheim's Blessing. Casting a spell automatically activates all of the Fate Maker's kill skills. So this seems like a very companion-heavy based build, or character, I mean. But also it seems like there's a lot for increasing your health, because the Graveborn goes through the health a lot. Because it seems to uses it for its base abilities, and it seems like there's a lot of kill skills that, if you do get that capstone ability, you can proc all at the same time, which seems very helpful. It's not particularly my style of gameplay, I don't think, so I will probably not be playing Graveborn. But remember, apparently you can multi-class, so keep that in mind whenever you're deciding what character you may or may not want to play. Next, we have the Spore Warden. Fungal friend with focus on ranged damage. Their class feat, Mushroom Companion. The Fate Maker is accompanied by a Mushroom Companion that targets nearby enemies and deals poison damage. Their action skills are Barrage. The Fatemaker summons an ethereal bow, firing 7 arrows that deal ability damage on impact. Arrows ricochet twice between nearby enemies. As well as Blizzard. The Fatemaker creates 3 Frost Cyclones for a duration that seek out nearby enemies, dealing frost ability damage over time. And now let's take a look at the Spore Warden's skill tree. Obviously, at your first level, you will get your class feat, as well as your Barrage ability, or whenever you hit level 2, I guess. And then you have Bounty of the Hunt, kill skill. Action skill cooldown rate is increased for a brief duration. Kindred Heart, companion health is increased, companion damage is increased. Eagle Eye, gun damage is increased, gun handling is increased. Affinity, ability damage is increased. Spore Cloud, the mushroom companion will occasionally let one rip, taunting enemies and leaving a poison cloud that deals damage over time for a duration. Bullseye, gun critical hit chance is increased, companion critical hit chance is increased. Quiver of Holding, magazine size is increased. The Fatemaker's currently equipped weapon regenerates ammo over time. Medicinal Mushroom, while the Fatemaker is in Save Your Soul, their mushroom companion will attempt to revive them. If it does, they and their companion gain increased damage dealt for a duration. Windrunner, kill skill. Movement speed and fire rate is increased for a duration. Thrill of the Hunt, gun critical hits grant increased companion damage for a duration. This effect can stack. Called Shot, while aiming down sights, the Fatemaker gains increased gun damage and damage resistance each second. Wrath of Nature, whenever the Fatemaker deals ability damage to an enemy, the affected enemy takes increased damage from all sources for a duration. Headhunter, gun damage dealt to critical hit areas is increased. And for the capstone, we have Play the Angles. The Fatemaker's gun critical hits have a chance to ricochet, dealing reduced ability damage to a nearby enemy. Ricocheted shots have a small chance to ricochet an additional time. So this seems to play a lot like Flak from Borderlands 3, it seems like. Your companion is very much more so a companion and not a main theme in this one, as well as not a sacrifice like it was for our previous class. It seems there's a lot of critical hit chance, there's a lot of magazine size stuff. It's very much so about taking your time, having the ammo and the damage to just go for critical hits and tank through them. And it seems like a lot of fun. Next on our list, we have the Berserker, an angry smasher with focus on frost damage. Their class feat, Rage of the Ancients. On an action skill start, the Fatemaker becomes enraged. Being enraged adds bonus frost damage to their attacks. Their action skills are Dreadwind. The Fatemaker spins, slashing anything nearby with their melee weapon and essentially becoming a pain tornado, as well as Feral Surge. The Fatemaker leaps toward the enemy, or target, dealing frost ability damage to all nearby enemies. And now to take a look at the Berserker skill tree. Ancestral Frost. Frost damage is increased. Savagery. Melee damage is increased. Enraged duration is increased. Unyielding. A percentage of missing health regenerates over time. While enraged, this effect is doubled. Icebreaker. The Fatemaker gains increased damage dealt to enemies that are slowed. The closer an enemy is to being fully frozen, the more damage is increased. The Old Ways. The Fatemaker deals bonus damage and gains increased damage reduction the closer they are to the enemy. The closer the enemy is, the greater the bonus. Instinct. Reload speed is increased, weapon swap speed is increased. While enraged, this effect is doubled. Cold Snap. Movement speed is increased. Frost efficiency is increased. While enraged, this effect is doubled. Unarmored Defense. A portion of the Fatemaker's ward is reserved and cannot be restored, but their maximum health is increased. Health can no longer be reserved. Blood Frenzy. Kill skill. A portion of the Fatemaker's active enrage timer and a percentage of their maximum health are restored. Ancient Fury. Maximum health is increased. Area damage is increased. Relentless Rage. Dealing damage while in Save Your Soul partially restores the Save Your Soul meter. The more damage is dealt, the greater the restoration. Restoration amount is decreased over time. Killing an enemy while in Save Your Soul will cause the Fatemaker to become enraged. Blast Chill. Whenever the Fatemaker deals melee damage to an enemy, there is a chance to release a Frost Nova, dealing frost ability damage to nearby enemies. Frost Nova cannot critically hit. Iron Squall. Fire rate is increased, melee attack speed is increased. While enraged, this effect is doubled. And for their capstone, Blood of the Fallen. Kill skill. The Fatemaker's remaining action skill cooldown is reduced by a percentage. If their action skill is currently active, restore a percentage of its duration instead. The Berserker is very much so an up-close and personal type of fighter, relying on their frost damage to both do damage itself and increase their base damage against frosted enemies. Their health regen and all of their maximum health increases lends itself really well to being a upfront, in the fray type of fighter. Generally, I think the Berserker would be really good for if you want to do a full melee build, or if you just really like shotgun type weapons, as well as anything that does area damage because of the area damage increase that comes with Ancient Fury. And frankly, it seems like a lot of fun. I think I will definitely have to try Berzerker at some point. Next, we have the Stabbomancer, a sneaky murderer with focus on critical hits. Their class feat, Dirty Fighting. The Fatemaker's critical hit chance is increased. Great for, stabbing. And their action skills are Ghost Blade. The Fatemaker throws a Ghost Blade which spins in place, dealing melee damage to nearby enemies based on the Fatemaker's equipped melee weapon. Pressing R1, or whatever the equivalent button is based on what you're playing, while Ghost Blade is active, causes it to teleport to the targeted location. And, from the shadows, the Fatemaker enters stealth, turning invisible. While in stealth, all damage dealt is automatically a critical hit, but critical hits deal reduced damage. And now for the Stabbomancer skill tree. First up, we have Arsenal. Melee damage is increased, spell damage is increased, gun damage is increased. So all around, just tanking up that damage. Haste. Melee attack speed is increased, movement speed is increased. When the Fatemaker casts a spell, this bonus is doubled for a duration. Potent Poisons. Status effect damage is increased, status effect duration is increased. Follow-up. Whenever the Fatemaker deals gun damage to an enemy, the Fatemaker's next melee attack deals increased damage. This effect can stack. Melee attacks consume all stacks. Swift Death. While moving, the Fatemaker gains increased damage dealt. The faster they move, the greater these bonuses. Exploit their weaknesses. Whenever the Fatemaker applies a status effect to an enemy, the affected enemy takes increased damage from all sources for its duration. This effect can stack per unique status effect. Nimble Fingers. Whenever the Fatemaker deals melee damage, their fire rate and spell damage are increased for a duration. Shadow Step. Kill skill. The Fatemaker's next melee attack is a guaranteed critical hit for a short duration. Sneak Attack. Critical hit damage is increased. Elusive. The Fatemaker can now shoot and sprint at the same time. The Fatemaker gains a chance to evade incoming damage while moving. The faster they move, the greater the bonus. Contagion. Whenever the Fatemaker applies a status effect, there is a chance it spreads to nearby enemies. If no enemies are nearby, apply a different random status effect to the initial enemy instead. 1,000 Cuts. Critical hits grant increased damage dealt for a duration. This effect can stack. Melee critical hits grant additional stacks. Melee critical hits apply a random status effect, which is Alchemical Agent. And their capstone, Executioner's Blade. Gun and spell critical hits have a chance to create an ethereal blade above the target that will impale them after a short delay. Ethereal blades deal melee damage based on the Fatemaker's equipped melee weapon. This character seems like a really good, addition to other characters in my opinion. Like the Stabbomancer Berserker melee combo could be fantastic, but also the bonuses that this gets to, after they cast a spell and stuff seems great, and all of the status effect stuff. If you have a status effect heavy class, It seems like multi-classing into Stabbomancer is probably the way to go. They strike me as the rogue of the party, which is always exciting. And now we have the Clawbringer, a wyvern tamer with focus on fire and lightning damage. Their class feat is the Wyvern Companion. The Clawbringer is accompanied by a wyvern companion that flies through the environment and attacks enemies with its claws and fire breath. And their action skills are Cleansing Flames. The Fatemaker summons their hammer and slams it into the ground, dealing melee damage and creating a massive fire nova, dealing fire ability damage to nearby enemies, as well as the Storm Dragon's Judgment. The Fatemaker summons their hammer and hurls it, dealing lightning damage to all enemies it touches. It sticks wherever it lands and deals lightning ability damage every second to all nearby enemies. Pressing R1, or whatever the equivalent button is based on whatever you're playing on, recalls the hammer, damaging enemies along its path. And now let's look at the Clawbringer's skill tree. Oath of Fire. The Fatemaker's gun damage and their Wyvern Companion deal bonus fire damage. Radiance. The Fatemaker gains increased maximum ward capacity. Oath of Thunder. The Fatemaker's melee damage and their Wyvern Companion deal bonus lightning damage. Dragon Aura. The Fatemaker is surrounded by an aura that grants themselves and all allies increased elemental damage. Dedication. The Fatemaker gains increased action skill cooldown rate based on their remaining ward. The greater the remaining ward, the greater the value. Rebuke. The Fatemaker gains increased damage reduction. Additionally, all damage dealt to allies is reflected to the attacker as lightning ability damage. And then we have Blasthomet's Favor. Kill skill. Killing an enemy with a gun, or whenever the Wyvern Companion kills an enemy with a breath attack, summons a fire orb that seeks out a new enemy dealing fire ability damage. Killing an enemy with melee damage, or whenever the Wyvern Companion kills an enemy with its claws, summons a lightning orb that seeks out a new enemy dealing lightning ability damage. Then we have Firebolt. The Wyvern Companion will occasionally shoot firebolts at enemies, causing fire damage in an area on impact and dealing fire damage over time in the area for a brief duration. Additionally, the Fatemaker gains increased gun damage. Friend to the Flame. Friend to Flame, not to the Flame. The Fatemaker's Wyvern Companion gains increased damage dealt. Storm Breath. The Wyvern Companion will occasionally use its lightning breath on enemies, dealing lightning damage that can arc from enemy to enemy. Additionally, the Fatemaker gains increased damage reduction. Awe. After dealing fire damage, the Fatemaker gains increased critical hit damage for a short duration. After dealing lightning damage, the Fatemaker gains increased critical hit chance for a short duration. Indomitable. If the Fatemaker would enter Save Your Soul, instead they instantly refill their ward and deal bonus lightning damage for a short duration. This skill has a long cooldown. And for the capstone, we have Storm Smite. Whenever the Fatemaker activates their action skill, they call down elemental bolts that deal fire ability damage or lightning ability damage to nearby enemies. This skill has a long cooldown. The Clawbringer, it seems, is very reliant on its abilities, or its action skills, and the fire damage and melee damage. It seems like it would pair really, really well with all of the extra ability damage that the Stabbomancer had, but it seems like a very strong class that could easily hold its own in the front lines. It kind of reminds me of like a paladin or a cleric type. So I think it'll be a lot of fun to play. And like, who doesn't want to have a little wyvern, baby dragon type creature flying around defending their honor? Because I do. And last but not least, we have the Spell Shot, a magic user with focus on constantly casting spells. Their class feat, Spellweaving. Casting a spell or reloading grants the Fatemaker a stack of Spellweaving, increasing spell damage. Spellweaving stacks automatically decay after a few seconds. And their action skills are Polymorph. The Fatemaker magically turns an enemy into a harmless skeep for a few seconds. As well as Ambihextrous. The Fatemaker may equip a second spell in their inventory. Whenever the Fate Maker presses R1, or again, whatever the equivalent button is based on whatever you're playing on, they cast that spell. And now for the Spell Shot skill tree. Spell Sniper. Spell critical hit chance is increased. Magic Bullets. A portion of all increases the Fate Maker receives to spell damage is also applied to their gun damage. Prestidigitation. Reload speed is increased. Font of Mana. Spell cooldown rate and action skill cooldown rate are increased. Mage Armor. Whenever the Fate Maker gains a stack of spell weaving, a portion of their ward is restored. Just Warming Up. The Fate Maker gains increased fire rate for every stack of spell weaving. Glass Cannon. The Fate Maker no longer automatically recharges their ward, but they gain drastically increased spell damage. Imbued Weapon. Whenever the Fate Maker casts a spell, their guns deal bonus damage of that spell's element for a duration. This effect stacks once for each spell equipped. High Thread Count. Max spellweaving stacks are increased. Warcaster. Kill Skill. Whenever the Fate Maker kills an enemy, there is a chance their currently equipped gun will be instantly reloaded. This chance is increased per stack of spellweaving. Double Knot. Whenever the Fate Maker scores a critical hit with a spell, they deal bonus gun damage of their gun's element. One Slot, One Kill. The Fate Maker gains increased gun damage per stack of spellweaving. And Sever the Thread. Gun critical hits have a chance to instantly reset all spell cooldowns. This skill has a short cooldown. So the Spell Shot is all about pumping out as many spells as possible, as quick as possible, all the time. And it's very heavy on their spell weaving ability, which increases their spell damage, and based on your initial skill up here, Magic Bullets will also increase their gun damage. So it's all about getting as many stacks of spell weaving as you can by just pumping out damage. They seem like a very high damage class, but also a very difficult class to maintain because of their glass cannon ability. So if you like to be constantly in the fray whenever you're playing with people, like, it seems like you could definitely find a very cohesive and comprehensive team composition to do the best you possibly can if that's something you wanted to do. If you play alone, all of the classes seem equally viable based on the playstyle that you enjoy. I'm super excited to get into this game. That being said, I think that's going to do it for this video, because we've gone through all of the classes, we've gone through all of their skills, and frankly, I just want to hop in the game and start playing. So if you enjoyed this video, please like the video, comment down below what class you're going to play, and if you have ideas for what you're going to multi-class into, tell me that as well. And please subscribe to the channel, it means a lot to me. With that being said, I will see you all next time. I hope you all enjoyed, and this is Travesty, signing off.